Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Monster Hunter World video. This is Thegameconomist, and today I'm going to be giving a full review of every skill in the game. That means all of the decorations. I've been playing the game for about 2,300 hours, so I feel like I probably have the credentials to talk about this. There's probably going to be a skill or two that I don't know everything about, so when I reach those, I'll ask you guys in the comment section to give your opinion on it as well. There's two reasons I want to talk about this. The first one is to give players an idea of what they should be focusing on. The second reason is we could probably talk about the skills that Capcom should rebalance for the Iceborne expansion. I don't know if they're open to rebalancing any of their skills, but it's really clear that a few skills are really OP and then many other skills are completely unused. So let's go ahead and talk about that. I want to start off by saying there's a complex relationship going on between three things: the decorations themselves, right? The armor and what built-in skills those armor sets have, as well as the set bonus skills, right? Those play a role as well. And then finally, the actual monsters, the matchups of who you have to fight plays a role as well. For example, we know most of the dangerous monsters are actually fire monsters, and when it comes to ice monsters, we get like Legiana, and that's, so there's kind of this unfair distribution of difficulty in the game, and this leads to a rise in the need of certain decorations. And so when you look at some of the skills, it's not that they need to be rebalanced, it's that the game needs to be rebalanced, okay? So maybe a different set of armor needs to come out, or maybe a different monster needs to come out. So the review I'm going to be giving takes into consideration the game in the state that it is now. Does that make sense? So we're not reviewing these skills with Iceborne having been released. We're reviewing them now and in relation to what kind of monsters you can fight, what kind of armor you can access, okay? Let's go ahead and take a look at the actual decorations. So the way I want to do this is I want to take a look at all the skills. I'm going to start with the small decorations, move on to the medium decorations, and finish off with the large decorations. This is a pretty large task, so I'm not going to have any kind of script for this. I'm just going to be talking freestyle, right? And if there's something I miss, maybe I forgot about it, maybe there's something you know about the skill that I don't because you've dealt with it more, be sure to share that with us in the comment section, okay? I really would appreciate that. That means also if you're watching this video, you should go check out the comment section for all of the tips that everyone shared. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. First, we have the Poison Resistance skill. Terrible skill, gets an F. The problem is you're going to be able to eat a nullberry, and as long as you can eat a nullberry, it's irrelevant. In the future, they could add a monster like Valhazak, who poisons you, like instantly. Then Poison Resistance skill would be useful. Or if you had like a poison floor, something like that. Anti-paralysis skill, it's just okay. The problem with the anti-paralysis skill is you're mostly just using it for Kieran. Gyros is Gyros is a baby. He's easy to kill, so he's not an issue. It's mostly just Kieran. And I would say these days, I don't really worry about Kieran's moveset. I think Kieran's actually pretty easy once you get him figured out. So this one at least is useful. Paralysis, I would give it a C. Pep, it's going right into F. Is an Uragan and Radoban resistance kind of decoration. It's going to protect you from sleep. You can't eat, obviously, if you go to sleep, but it's one of those things where if you just learn the skill, it's very easy to avoid. Steadfast is legit. That's getting a B. So with Steadfast, it's usually not a top choice for defense, but you can build it very easily with the Kolv Ire chest piece, and it is actually relevant to a few monsters that are capable of stunning you quickly, like I want to say Teostra is probably one of my favorite examples. He just stuns you very quickly. If you get stunned, there's a very good chance you're going to die, because if you've been stunned, it's a good sign that you've been hit multiple times in a row, and then while you're stunned, if that powerful monster hits you one more time, you're usually out. So stun resist is legit. It's not one of my first choices for defense, but especially because it's so easy to build with the Terrath Ire chest piece, it's going to get a B. Anti-blast is going into F. Once again, similar to like poison, you can easily heal yourself a blast. Even easier than the poison, you just roll 3 times. Who can't do that? Everyone can do that. Then we have bleeding resistance. That's going to get an F. You have Behemoth and Leshen are both causing bleed. Odogaron is as well. It's annoying to have the bleed effect on you, the ailment, but you can just crouch to get rid of it first of all. And second of all, you can eat a Stera Jerky the way you can eat Nullberry for other effects. You can just eat a Stera Jerky and it's also gone. So once again, it's one of those issues where we deal with it by consuming an item rather than by building for it, and that opens up your slots for other things. Iron Skin. So Iron Skin is protecting you against defense down. I would say the problem is there aren't enough monsters causing an issue with the defense down. How do you heal defense down as well? Do you guys know? I don't actually know. Is it just with the Nullberry? If it's just with the Nullberry, then it's kind of a joke. Otherwise, I'm not sure how it gets healed. You want to know why I don't know how it gets healed? Because when I have the defense down ailment, I don't even bother with it. I don't even worry about it. Defense down, what it's doing is making it so that you take more damage. And it's like, I barely even notice. I barely even care. So this is getting an F. Attack boost, that is S tier for attack boost, at least if you take it to level 4. If you're a speedrunner, you'll typically take it to level 7 if you can. This is just giving you static attack more damage, right? So you're not, it's not like Agitator where it has to activate, you just get it, you know? And if you reach level 4 of attack boost, you're also getting 5% affinity, and affinity is a big deal in this game. So attack boost goes right into S tier. It's one of the hardest to unlock decorations. It has an atrocious drop rate. You can get 2 of them, one for completing the story or something like that. The other one you get for doing all the side quests for The Witcher, right? The Witcher side quest in the contract Trouble in the Ancient Forest special assignment. So I tell you what, I'll leave a link to that video. If you haven't already collected that attack boost decoration, you'll definitely want to do that. It's a very important skill. So attack boost is just increasing your damage output, and that's really valuable in this game because your goal with Monster Hunter World is to be able to kill a monster fast. It really is. It makes everything easier. You crowd control them sooner, and you finish the fight before they can kill you. So that's the theme we're going to be seeing throughout all of the reviews here. Then we have the defense decoration. This is going to get an F. You almost never have a reason to take defense boost over the other good defensive skills. There are good defensive skills in the game. It's just not defense, because when you raise your defense, it really doesn't play a big role in keeping your character alive. Defense is not actually giving you that much defense. If they were to take this skill and rework it, what I would do is change it so that you're just getting really heavy amounts of defense from this skill to the point where it can compete with some of the other skills. And we'll talk about those very soon. In fact, here's the #1 defensive skill, Health Boost. Nothing really compares with Health Boost. You could make an argument for the Fortitude skill. The Fortitude skill, we'll get to that in a minute, but the Vitality is giving you 50 more health, and this is a really big deal because the way it works is monsters are going to deal a bunch of damage to you, and what you're looking to do is increase your health enough that the monster goes from being able to one-shot you to now having to two-shot you. That's a big deal because it gives you a chance to survive a one-shotting move and then heal up and run away. So Vitality goes right into S tier for defense, right? We're going to say S tier for offense, S tier for defense because they're very different. Speedrunners don't really care about Vitality. They care a lot more about probably something like the attack boost, right? But health boost is really important for players like me who are going to cart every single match. We want health boost. Then we have recovery speed. I'm not sure how I feel about this one. It's probably somewhere along the lines of like Steadfast maybe, but here's the problem I have with recovery speed. You're really reliant on that health recovering before you take your next hit. You know how we were just talking about health boost? We were saying you're trying to get over this threshold where you're able to tank 2 shots from a monster. So in theory with recovery speed, this is going to make it so that maybe you don't have to heal. Right, if you had to heal anyways, recovery speed is useless, right? So if a monster hits you, you've got recovery speed 3, but you have to heal anyways, it was pointless. Why did you even bring recovery speed? So the idea behind recovery speed then must be you take a hit from the monster, you have the red health bar, it all comes back, and you're still within that threshold of being able to survive 2 attacks. The problem with it, and I think a lot of you guys kind of intuitively understand this as well, the problem is that with really difficult monsters, this generally isn't true, is it? With really strong monster, the recovery jewel is just not going to give you enough of your health back in a safe amount of time for you to consider it that useful, okay? So the recovery jewel, I think it should rank under the Steadfast decoration. I would take Steadfast over recovery. So recovery is going to the C tier, maybe D tier. We have one of the most valuable resistance decorations in the game, Fire Resistance. Hopefully Iceborne changes that. Okay, so Fire Resistance, if you're thinking about taking defense, stop. You should already have Vitality, and then you should be looking at elemental resistance types. Now, if you're fighting Nergigante, that's not going to be useful for you, but if you're fighting like Lunastra, totally different deal. Look, you get 3 levels of Fire Resistance, and you get a little bonus 10 defense. It's not much, but it's a little bit. The resistance is a big deal because when you get your elemental resistance over 20, you then are also immune to blights. So fire resistance is extremely useful right now in the game because there's a whole bunch of powerful fire monsters. Not so much the other monster types, but definitely fire resistance. So fire resistance goes right into the S tier as well. Now we're going to put fire resistance into the A tier, okay? Vitality comes first, fire resistance comes second, A tier. Subsequently, I feel like that would be appropriate to do for all of these, but we're not going to. Remember, I told you that my rating of these skills are going to be in relationship to what the game currently is. Okay, so in the future, we expect ice resistance to be very valuable. It's not valuable at all right now. So water resistance, not valuable. Ice resistance, not valuable. F on both of those. Thunder resistance, valuable against Kieran. So just because of Kieran, we're going to put this in the A tier. And then dragon resistance, useful against Arch-Tempered Zenjiva. His beams do dragon damage. We're putting this right into the A tier because of it. Resistor Jewel. In the future, if you have a monster that deals, I would say, 3 blights at the same time, Resistor Jewel will be useful. As of right now, totally useless. F tier. Alright, now we have these elemental boosts, right? You have fire attack, water attack, ice attack, thunder attack, dragon attack, all these going right into the S tier. The reason these go into the S tier is because they're raising your damage output, which I told you is extremely valuable in Monster Hunter World. So just like we have attack boost over here, this would be like for raw damage. We have the elemental decorations for elemental damage, and you have weapons that really benefit from this, like light bow guns who use elemental ammo, the bows, the dual blades, and even some of the medium attack speed weapons like insect glaives, lances. So these are actually very valuable. Okay. Now we have poison attack. F. You know why poison attack skill gets an F? Because poison in the game needs to be totally reworked. It is easily the worst and most useless ailment in the game. Not only are there no meta weapons that also, well, you could make an argument for the Royal Burst gun lance, but I think it's kind of an outdated argument at this point. We have a lot of new QR gun lances to work off of. So I would argue there's no good poison weapons in the game. They're all sub-tier or sub-tier, basically. So because of that, poison, you wouldn't build this anyways, just because if you did have a meta weapon that had like poison on it, poison is just a bonus on that weapon at that point. Poison itself, the ailment, totally useless. Yeah, Capcom needs to strongly rework that. Nobody will consider using this if they know what they're doing. So Venom Juke gets an F. Paralysis attack, though. Paralysis and sleep. So here's the deal. This gets a little more complicated. Let's imagine Arch-Tempered Kulftaroth. In Stage 4, you're trying to use Crowd Control's Honor because she is very strong when you don't crowd control her and very weak when you do crowd control her. Okay, so paralyzing her and putting her to sleep are two of those strategies. The issue here is that the weapons that are best suited for paralyzing her and putting her to sleep are weapons like the Legiana bow, which you can bring sleep and paralysis on the Legiana bow, as well as something like the Thegameconomist heavy bowgun. It just comes with paralysis ammo and sleep ammo, and it actually doesn't need the sleep decorations or the paralysis decorations in order to accomplish its attacks. What am I trying to say? In order to accomplish its goals. There we go. And then once it's done paralyzing her once, putting her to sleep once, you swap over to just dealing damage, right? So that's the issue. So in theory, these are useful for weapons that, let's say the insect glaive that uses paralysis. That would be the QR paralysis insect glaive. In theory, paralysis attack is useful on that if you manage to get one more paralysis on your target before the target dies. So because of that, we'll put this into the, it's tricky, I want to say the A tier. We'll put these into the A tier, okay? I would say A tier on the sleep decorations and the paralysis decorations. That one's a little more controversial. Feel free to disagree with me. I feel like the experts will actually put this more in B tier. That's what I think. Same for blast attack. Blast attack is very similar to the others too. Unlike sleep and paralysis though, blast is a little bit different. Blast does straight damage. So I guess it's a curious thing because the question would be how many more blasts are you going to get from having level 3 blast attack, and how much damage does that come out to be? Because what you guys have to understand is if you're taking 3 levels of these, that means you're not taking 3 levels of attack boost. All right, does that make sense? So if you're taking 3 levels of sleep, paralysis, or blast, you're not taking 3 levels of attack boost, and you actually have to see which of those is more useful. And that would only be for weapons that don't have what the Legiana bow and Magna Gametas have. That is, coatings and ammo where they can just use those, not really worry about building sleep and paralysis, and then move over to doing damage. So again, this is for like a sleep hammer, or paralysis glaive, that kind of situation. Expert Decoration, we all know the answer for this one. This is going to be S tier, one of the most important skills in the game. It gives you up to 30% more affinity. That's actually really good. This is static affinity, means it doesn't rely on anything. You just get that affinity, right? You don't have to hit the monster in a weak spot. You don't have to have favorable hit zones on the monster. Really powerful skill. You get it from the Draken set, you get it from the Teostra Gamma set, so easily S tier. What's going on in the game, I mentioned Monster Hunter World's all about damage. So Affinity is combining with Crit Boost 3. They have synergy together, okay? The way Crit Boost 3 is increasing your crit damage, and so the more times you get crit damage, the more times Crit Boost is proccing. So there's kind of this synergistic, kind of like exponential increase in your damage as you're adding Affinity and Crit Boost together. So Affinity is a huge deal. Next, we have Stamina Thief. This is getting an F. None of the tough monsters in the game are strongly affected by, draining their exhaustion. What is the word for that? Yeah, I think just exhausted is the right word. Yeah, so exhausting, you can exhaust the Behemoth, I suppose, but again, would you really give up your attack boost because Behemoth is going to get exhausted maybe once, maybe twice more often? I don't think I would. Here is one of the best decorations in the game for casuals and maybe speedrunners. I'm pretty sure speedrunners use Fortify. So Fortify is going right into the S tier. The way it works is when you die twice, you're getting a huge boost to attack and defense, which is kind of useful for staying alive. A lot of my solo builds are based around Fortify. And what's going on is that extra damage is making it possible for players like Hunting Horns to be able to fight something like the Extreme Behemoth solo, right? Without Fortify, I think it would be very close for them to be able to actually finish those fights. So Fortify goes right into the S tier, easily one of the strongest buffs to your attack in the game if you're playing by yourself. If you're playing with the team, it's just okay. It's not useful, but it's not as good. Sonorous Decoration. This is an, I've never really thought about it. So it extends the duration of your horn buffs and is extremely useful. I'm wondering if it's necessary for like a speedrunner. That would affect my perception of it. I'm going to put this into S tier for Hunting Horns. For everyone else is F tier. S tier for Hunting Horns, F tier for everyone else. Then we have the True Shot Decorations. These are useful for Dragon Piercer, which nobody should be using. I have not found any Dragon Piercer builds that are useful, including a crit draw one on the Sierra Coil Bender bow. And then, of course, it is actually useful for the heavy bowguns and the light bowguns. So light bowguns use Wyvern Blast, and heavy bowguns use Wyvern Snipe and Wyvern Heart. And all three of those special ammo types, if you can afford to get True Shot into your build, then is probably worth it because it's really easy to get. There's only 2 levels of it, and with the Zenjiva Gamma Armor, you typically are taking the Gamma Armor and you're getting 1 level of it anyways, so you just top it off with 1 more level. It gives you another 10% damage to those attacks. The Wyvern Heart is actually very damaging, if you guys didn't know that, and when you're fighting like Kulv Taroth, the Wyvern Snipe is also very damaging. So this is going to go into S tier as well. Artillery going right into S tier. These are all damage-related skills, right? Artillery going right into S tier is used in the Charge Blaze for their files. Is that right? Impact charge files? I think I said that right. You have the shelling damage on your gun lance, really important to get artillery. Then you have sticky ammo and wyvern ammo on the heavy bowgun and the light bowgun. It's affecting a good number of weapons, and really weapons that are able to take advantage of the artillery decorations. They're usually very interesting because that damage output type is the explosive damage type. Doesn't need affinity at all, so you don't have to build affinity, you don't have to build crit boost, you're just relying on this 1 skill artillery to get your damage up. Sometimes you're also worried about something like capacity boost, focus, right? But those are relatively cheap when you compare them to weakness exploit, max might, crit boost, and so artillery builds end up being very efficient, and you're able to fit utility things onto the build like health boost, protection, earplugs, whatever it is you want. So artillery right into the S tier is one of those damage output skills in the game. Heavy artillery is going into the F tier, except for fighting Arch-Tempered Zora Magdaros. In that case, it goes right into the S tier. Okay, so just in one fight, Arch-Tempered Zora Magdaros, do you want to bring Heavy Artillery Jewel? It does exactly what it says. It increases the damage of ballista and cannons. Hungerless Decoration. What does this one do? Reduces maximum stamina depletion over time. Totally useless. F. So this is when you're in a fight for a long time, your stamina naturally depletes. And Hungerless Jewel is saying, hey, take 3 of these and that won't happen. Totally ridiculous, because every time you start a quest, you get 3 rations from the community chest, and you just eat one of those and everything's better. So if Capcom were to make it so that your stamina depletes very quickly, and then they were to remove all rations and stakes and everything, this might be useful, but even then it would be questionable, because a lot of players probably would finish the fight in time without needing the stamina. There would just be a few builds like dual blades and bows that actually need it. So terrible, terrible skill. F. They could just remove it from the game. Iron Wall. Iron Wall is used with Lance and Gun Lance, and not so much with the Sword and Shield. I don't think it gets used as much with the Sword and Shield. People try to use the backstep to dodge, and they just dodge with the Sword and Shield. So Iron Wall gets used with the Gun Lance. You know what? It also, one level of Iron Wall is used with the Charge Blade as well, right? You guys have told me this. You use this skill in order to not be pushed back when you're guarding an attack from the monster, and this allows you to, because you go into an easier recovery frame, you're able to then counterattack the monster. And in that regard, you could consider this, to a small degree, you can consider this not just a defensive skill, but also an offensive skill. With that being said, I typically don't prioritize it over some of the strongest defensive skills in the game. So if you're talking about the most defensive skills ever, Vitality, Fire Resistance, and Protection are going to come up on that list, and at that point, you really don't have a lot of room for Iron Wall. So Iron Wall, I think, will go into the B tier. In theory, it sounds really useful, but if you're really trying to go for defense, I never take it. And if you're talking about offense, at least on the Charge Blade, it's more useful, because you're only taking 1 level of it, but on like Gun Lance and Lance, I really just don't worry about it too much. Let me know if you guys disagree on that one. Wow, we're at 22 minutes. Then we have the Sheath Decoration. So for Quick Sheath, it's another skill I never use. So this, in theory, is going to let you put your weapon away faster, and it's going to save your life. That actually happens to me. Sometimes I die because I'm sheathing my weapon. I have clear memories of that. The thing is, you just learn to time when you sheath better. So if you're using a slow weapon, my most used weapon is the heavy bowgun. It has a very slow sheath time, right? Very slow. And I've just learned to be more careful before you sheath, and that's it. And then you don't die from that. So rather than sheath, I'm taking Vitality, Fire Resistance, and Protection. Here's the Friendship Decoration. This is going right into S tier. Healer builds have been extremely useful for a lot of events, in particular the Ancient Leshen recently, and Behemoth. For both of those fights, having a dedicated healer is a big effing deal. So Friendship, wide range, goes right into the S tier for defense. It gives your team their health back. It heals your team from bleed. You can eat an Astera Jerky. You can give your whole team a Mega Demon Drug. So you're not guaranteed that everyone on your team is going to drink a Mega Demon Drug, right? You're not guaranteed that. They should to increase their damage, but they're probably not. So you can go ahead and take wide range, eat Mega Demon Drug, and similar to a Hunting Horn giving out attack up large, you're buffing your whole team for damage output. That's another reason why the Friendship Charm is Friendship Decoration is so valuable, because you can give everyone Mega Demon Drug, and then you can do something like eat a Might Pill, or you can eat a Might Seed, and really get the damage output up on your team. So S tier for Friendship. Let's move on. Item Prolonger. I need a drink of water. It extends the duration of some item effects. I believe what this does, so I just mentioned a Might Pill. Might Pill lasts like 20-something seconds, and I'm pretty sure what this is saying is if you take this to level 3, it's going to last 50%, huh? It's going to last for 30 seconds, is that right? I've never, oh, my phone going off. I've never used Item Prolonger. If you guys think it's good, please let me know. Alright, after that we have the Satiated Decoration. This is a skill that is actually relevant to people using the Friendship skill. It activates 25% of the time. Basically, when you eat an item, you have a chance of it not being consumed. This is useful. I said Mega Demon Drug, and what that could mean is Mega Demon Drugs are very valuable. They're expensive, and you could play a healer and have a chance of not actually consuming that Mega Demon Drug, so you consume them slower. Is useful in that regard. It's not a powerful skill, but it's useful for people who are trying to save their resources. We're going to put it into the B tier. One of the nice things about it is it's very cheap. It's not super important. It doesn't actually affect the game. It just saves you some items. You all understand that. So B tier for that one. Gobbler, on the other hand, is going to make you a more effective healer. Okay, so this is a defensive skill. It's relevant to wide range builds. We're going to put that into A tier because it's going to help you protect your teammates. Grinder is speed sharpening. I think that the speed sharpening should probably go into C tier or D tier. So in theory, this should be a good skill because keeping white sharpness is really valuable to your damage output. But what happens is if you really want to keep your damage output up, there's two other options you have. You can go to the canteen and you can eat for protective polish. By the way, I just made a canteen guide. If you haven't seen it, here's a link. Oh, well, there'll be a link in the description. I'll put it in the comment section, right? So canteen guide, you can eat protective polish, not protective polish, feline polisher. The other option is you can bring a wetfish scale with you, and the wetfish scale will also reduce the number of times you have to sharpen, do the little animation before your weapon is sharp. So speed sharpening, like many of the other skills, can be delegated to eating items. After that, we have Bombardier. Bombardier gets an S tier rating for fighting Arch-Tempered Clove Taroth. She takes extra bomb damage, and then this is going to boost that damage even more. Very valuable for fighting her. For everything else, I wouldn't say quite as valuable. I would give it maybe, I would say maybe like a B tier for everything else, S tier for Arch-Tempered Clove Taroth. Mushroom Mancer, I never used this skill. Everyone keeps telling me how good level 1 Mushroom Mancer is. I just don't know how to agree with that. I've heard their reasoning. This is a good one for debate, right? The Mushroom Mancer, maybe somebody with a lot of authority on wide range builds can really explain in detail why you should definitely bring Mushroom Mancer. But as far as I'm concerned, I think that you can actually just bring honey with you, first aid meds, mega potions, and Gobbler if you want Gobbler, and you're totally fine. You don't even necessarily need Gobbler. All right, and then here we are, one of the best defensive skills in the game. I think this one gets overlooked a lot. Divine Blessing, you find it on that helmet. What is the name of that helmet? The Guild Cross helmet. Really good, gives you 2 levels of protection and 3 small decoration slots, which is also going to give you vitality. This is one of the best defensive skills in the game because it works by percentages. Look at level 3. While active, reduces damage taken by 50%. All right, so that's effectively going to, it doesn't matter if you're taking 10 damage or 1,000 damage, it's going to cut it in half. So, but if you're taking 1,000 damage and it gets cut in half, it just saved you 500 health. That's why percentages are so valuable. It works by fractions, right? So, Divine Blessing, one of the best defensive skills in the game. If you're fighting Nergigante, you're not going to use Fire Resistance. You're going to go Vitality and you're going to go Protection, okay? Vitality, Protection. Those are your best defensive skills. We have Palico Rally. I've used it a few times. I never seem to notice the difference. I think all Capcom has to do with this skill, because it's expensive. Look, you take it to level 5. This is a single player skill, and if they were to significantly buff this skill, I think some players would definitely consider it, especially players using a shield. This doesn't get, this doesn't get a rating. This is just for farming. This is just for farming. This gets an F. I never use Slinger Capacity. You could probably make an argument for Ancient Lesson where it could be considered a D or a C, but for everything else, an F. Stone Thrower. Tiptoe, not really relevant. That one's for farming. This is interesting. Spore Puff, I've never actually used this. I don't think it's actually that valuable. You could make an argument for Ancient Lesson. I don't actually think it's that valuable. Just go Vitality and Protection, guys. Meyer Walker improves mobility in water. For the current meta, for the fights that you actually have, this is only useful for like Gyrototus and Barrett, and they're both low-level monsters. Then we have Specimen, irrelevant. This is for farming. Scenthound, that's for farming. Intimidator for farming. Medicine, this is one that I'm still trying to figure out. Maybe some of you guys have done some experimentation. I have not done some experimentation. So I thought maybe you guys could talk to me about how you guys feel about the recovery up skill. So if it works with health regen augmentations, it's actually pretty strong. Also, if it works with the wide range skill. What it's doing is when you recover health, you actually recover more health, and notice it's by a percentage, by 30%. That's actually significant. So I suspect the medicine skill, it could rank right around Vitality and Protection. It could be Vitality, Protection, Recovery Up, those 3, okay? So this is the one to really watch and to study and to do some testing on. Here's the Crisis skill. It says improve evasion and reduce stamina depletion when afflicted with abnormal status effects. In my opinion, you should almost never have abnormal status effects, so I never use the skill because I'm good at avoiding being attacked, and I'm good at keeping my elemental resist high enough that I never get blighted, right? And if you get like paralyzed or put to sleep, it doesn't really affect you. Tool Specialist. This is also a high tier defensive skill. I'm going to put it in the A tier. Well, no, we're going to put it in the S tier. You know why? Because when you're fighting Behemoth and when you're fighting the Ancient Leshen, it's one of the best defensive skills because it's giving you back Rocksteady and it's giving you back the Temporal Mantle sooner in the fight. So S tier for some of the most difficult fights in the game is, again, Rocksteady and Temporal Mantle come back sooner. They keep you alive and they allow you to do more damage because you're allowed to play more aggressively. So this is one of those defensive skills that's also a little bit offensive, and you can build it easily using the Empress Coil, right? And then here's a Fluvia Resist, S tier for fighting Arch-Tempered Valhazak, F tier for everything else, obviously, is one of those really weird skills that really only affects one fight in the game. So that is all of the small decorations. If you'll give me a moment, I have to answer this text. Hold on. So that is all of the small decoration slots. So that is all of the small decorations. Let's move over to the medium decorations. Hopefully there won't be quite as many of them. Alright, so Wind Resistance. Wind Resistance is useful for Lunastra and to a lesser degree Kushala Daora. I never take Wind Resistance. There's actually a Hunting Horn that can give you all wind pressure negated, which you can use against them. If you're playing on a team, you can give your team that protection against the wind. But otherwise, I just don't use it that often. The Rocksteady Mantle will protect you from wind resistance as well. You could take it on certain builds, right? You could take it on like a Gunlance build as a choice utility build. The problem is, when I'm going for utility, I usually reach for the Earplugs skill for those monsters, especially Arch-Tempered Lunastra. She's the one that I'm thinking it would actually be useful on, right? Arch-Tempered Lunastra. But she also roars a lot, so I actually reach for Earplugs first. Wind Resistance is going to get a C tier rating. Useful, sort of useful in some very limited situations. Then you have Tremor Resistance. Tremor Resistance is useful against Arch-Tempered Xeno'jiiva. He has a lot of moves that will cause you to become tremored. Is also, you can make a case for Behemoth as well. If you're not very good at dodging his attacks, he's going to have a few moves that generally cause tremor. Tremor Resist also isn't that hard to build anymore. You have a good chest piece from the Zora Gamma armor. So Tremor Resist, I want to say Tremor Resist gets a B tier for the cases where it's actually useful. Arch-Tempered Xeno'jiiva and the Behemoth, at least B tier. And then here we are. This is the Critical Boost skill. One of the most important skills in the game. Goes right into S, maybe even S plus tier if you want to give it S plus. This, combining with Affinity, is synergizing to reach higher levels of damage output that you couldn't really get any other way. Crit Boost is one of the most valuable and important skills in the game, S tier. It increases your damage a lot. Tenderizer also. Tenderizer pairs with Crit Boost almost like in most builds it does. So this is also S plus, right? Maybe S plus. Here's the Focus skill. So this is one I have mixed feelings about it. It's a good skill. I just did tests on the Greatsword. The Greatsword uses Focus to get more damage output on it. But it's not quite as good as Tenderizer and Maximizer. What would that make it? Probably A tier for Focus. So Focus affects Greatswords. It's also going to be it's also going to be affecting bowguns. It's going to give you back your special ammo sooner. That would be Wyvern Blast, Wyvern Snipe, Wyvern Heart. And what else does Focus do? Oh, right. You're going to get long shelling on the gun lances. Is going to be faster. So if you're doing long shelling, you charge your shell. It's going to come out sooner. I think it also... No, artillery affects the rate that Wyvern Fire comes back. Is that right? So Focus is a skill that's going to increase your damage output, but it's not quite as high as some of the other skills that increase your damage output. I would say A for Focus. The Critical Draw skill. So this is going to be a controversial one. Some players really believe Critical Draw can be useful on one or two weapons. The one I hear the most is the Greatsword. But the Greatsword, after a lot of testing, I did a lot of frame testing. The Greatsword does all of its damage in Tier 3. And if you used Tier 3, what I mean by that is True Charge Slash. And the problem here is some players then told me, well, you just use tackle to get to true charge slash. The tackle actually reduces your damage. When you use tackles to get to true charge slash, you actually lose a whole bunch of damage. So I can't think of any situations where crit draw is good. Another example I heard is with the Sierra Coilbender using the Dragon Piercer. I tried all kinds of various builds to use that. Terrible in all cases. So crit draw, I'm going to put crit draw into maybe F tier. Maybe F tier for crit draw. Might be above that. Might be D. The Part Breaker skill. Part Breaker is incredibly valuable for one fight in particular, Arch-Tempered Kulftaroth. Arch-Tempered Nergigante is not out yet. We will find out if it's useful on him, but right now it is S tier for Kulftaroth. I don't know what. For farming it's useful as well, by the way. It's useful for farming, but that's not going to get a rating. Farming is not going to get a rating. In regular fights, I really feel like it's not relevant in regular fights because it's too easy to break their parts, just dealing high damage. So S tier for Kulftaroth, breaking her golden mantles in part 1, 2, and 3 of her fight. In part 4, you take the destroyer decorations off. S tier for her, F tier for everything else. And then we have the KO decoration. The KO decoration kind of reminds me of the focus decoration. You have some limited uses for it. It's going to affect blunt damage. That would be like sword and shield. There's various weapons have blunt damage. Some weapons really do a lot of stun damage, right? I think sword and shield would actually count in that group, but especially sticky ammo strongly benefits from the slugger skill, I would say. And then you have hammer and you have hunting horn. The problem is with hammer and hunting horn, they're so focused on building up their damage output that they don't really have time to worry about slugger, right? They don't have any space for that. The sticky ammo is a different story. Sticky ammo really only needs artillery, spare shot, and free ammo. And after that, you have room for KO. You have room for the slugger skill. On top of that, slugger skill is one of those skills where the charm version of it holds all three levels of it. So you can actually get the charm on your build, and it's much easier to build than you realize. So I feel like just for sticky ammo, it probably gets an A. It's not the most important thing, but it's actually quite valuable. We're putting KO in the A tier. Then we have Airborne. This is just a straight damage increase to jumping attacks. I would put this right into S tier, I would say, especially considering some of the highest damage output in the game is aerial ledge hopping with the greatsword and the hammer and the gun lance. So yeah, this goes right into S tier. It's very straightforward. It's just a straight damage boost. Latent power. This is a confusing one. So in theory, it sounds really good. The problem with latent power is that you either have to take a lot of damage or you have to let enough time pass before it's valuable. We do have some valuable armor pieces that give you the latent power with the Teostra Gamma set, but I just never use it. And the main reason why it never gets used is because it's too easy to already hit 100% affinity using Max Might, Weakness Exploit, and Crit Eye. As well as affinity augmentations, okay? So it's too easy to hit 100% affinity to the point where throttle kind of becomes irrelevant because it doesn't give you enough of a boost. I would say if throttle only had 3 levels to it and it went up to 50, I think people would really start to consider it then. If it only took 3 levels, and even then it would be questionable. You have some fights that are legitimately very long, like maybe the Behemoth fight, maybe the Ancient Leshen fight, and I think some people would consider it then. Agitator. I think that Agitator is a skill that people might be sleeping on. It's not quite as good as Peak Performance because you have to have 5 levels of it, but we're going to see. I don't know. This is one where I need more information, more research on it. At level 5, you're only getting plus 20 attack, but if you had armor pieces that gave you Agitator in a more efficient way, it would actually be a pretty decent skill because you're getting even more attack out. Okay, so keep your eye on the Agitator skill. Right now it loses to Peak Performance, but Peak Performance isn't even usable in some cases, right? So here's Peak Performance right here. Gives you 20 with level 3, but you can't take any damage. This is really exactly what speedrunners want right here, something like Peak Performance. But the truth is, even casual players can take advantage of Peak Performance level 3, especially with the Lunastra beta chest piece. You can reach Peak Performance level 3 quite easily. The thing is, with it reaching 20 attack at level 3 very easily, you can use those leftover 2 medium decoration slots to build 20% Max Might, right? That would be 20% affinity for Max Might. We'll look at Agitator level 5. Even with Agitator only proccing when the monster is enraged, you're increasing your affinity by only 15%, and that's why Agitator ends up losing to Peak Performance. But there's still fights like Arch-Tempered Valhazak where you're not always really going to get the benefit of peak performance. You do sometimes, actually, but you don't always get the benefit of peak performance. So it's actually, I feel like it's a bit closer than we think it is, and it would take some heavy analysis to really understand which one's going to be better in every single situation. And if Agitator was buffed at all by Capcom, it would be even closer. So Agitator's close. We just need some armor pieces that actually give us Agitator in a very efficient way. Heroics, dude, I don't know what I feel about Heroics. Heroics, I never use Heroics, just like I don't use Feline Heroics at the canteen. This is a speedrunner skill. I don't think, I feel like speedrunners end up not using it either. Increase attack power by 30%. I'll leave this one open for debate in the comment section. I think in theory it could be very good, but it's taking 5 levels of it, and you come across another question. The question is, how good can this skill be if it's impractical? I think for most casual players this is an extremely impractical skill, but if you're extremely skilled at the game, Heroics and Feline Heroics might actually be a way to reach peak damage output. You see what I'm saying? So this should, in theory, it should probably be an S tier skill, in theory. Here's Resentment. I don't think Resentment actually does that well. I think it's more like probably a B tier attack skill, B or C. The issue here is, once again, you need 5 medium decoration slots to fill this up, and there are no really good pieces of armor that use Resentment right now. Capcom could change this by offering some new armor pieces that use Resentment much more efficiently, but until then, it's all about peak performance, guys. Peak performance, plus 20 attack, only level 3, and you've got the Empress beta chest piece. Did I not put this in the S tier? This is an S tier skill, by the way. So Resentment, more in the B tier, I would say, and maybe useful against something like a monster that's always going to deal tick damage, always. In that case, Resentment, maybe. The other problem is, you're going to heal so fast if you've got a health regen augmentation. That's the other issue. But let's say you did an affinity augmentation and an attack augmentation, so that Resentment would stay procced, and you're getting the bonus of that attack augmentation over health regen. So again, it gets a little more complicated. You really would have to sit down and analyze this more for every matchup and every situation, and just as a rule, peak performance is much easier and simpler and a good skill, but Agitator and Resentment are close. They just need, I think they need better armor pieces, because they cost 5 as opposed to 3. Capacity boost is S tier easily. Capacity boost is increasing the damage output on your charge blade and your gun lance, and anything else? I can't think of anything else right now. If there's anything else, let me know. But yeah, it's increasing your damage output by increasing the number of files on your charge blade, on the gun lance, the number of shells. Marathon Runner is, I want to say, roughly A or B tier. The Marathon Runner is being used by dual blades to stay in the I can't remember the name of the it's when you're in the stamina depletion mode. It's that demon mode. It allows you to stay in that mode longer. And what people like to do, what speedrunners like to do, is I think they take 1 level of this, or I can't remember, it's 1 level or 2 levels, and then they eat a dash juice. But let's say you didn't even want to do that. You're a casual player, you don't want to consume those items. You would just take this to level 3, and it's going to increase your damage output in that demon mode. So this is going into, I think, A or B tier. It's not quite as important as Weakness Exploit, Max Might, and Crit Boost, but it is important for dual blades. Constitution. Similar to Marathon Runner, this is increasing the damage output of bows, but I think that is actually even more valuable to bows than Marathon Runner is valuable to dual blades. So I think this probably deserves A tier and maybe S tier. I think S tier would be pushing it. Probably A tier for this, because you can't really get, I don't know. That would be hard to calculate. I'm going to put Constitution in A tier. I think A tier sounds right from an intuitive perspective. We have Stamina Surge. I don't know if anyone uses this skill. I think dual blade users and bow users just prefer, to finish off Marathon Runner and Constitution before they take Stamina Surge. So Stamina Surge just gives you back your stamina faster. But there are ways around that with stuff like Dash Juice, right? Evade Window. We saw Evade Window used on the series set. The series set, You know what? I am 44 minutes into this video. We're going to stop on the evasion decoration, and I'm going to split this into a part 1, part 2 video. I really did not realize how long this was. I've talked at lightning speed the entire time. Yeah, I've talked at lightning speed, and we are still just about, I don't know, like halfway through. So I will finish this video up in part 2. I hope you guys keep your eye out to that. I'm going to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.